So today we get to talk about 1.8. We can throw an A on there if you want to, because we're going to work on it today and tomorrow. And we're going to talk about these things called inverse functions. So really, when it comes to taking the inverse of a function, you're undoing the change that produced your original function. So this, it just undoes. I don't know how you spell undoes. No, undoes. See, it's one of those mornings. It undoes the change produced by f, or your function. Right? So if we were just to look at coordinate points, so let's say they gave us where f of x equaled the points 4, -3, let's go 2, 0, now I'm just making these up as I go along, 5, -3, I don't know, how many more do we want to go? -3, 2, and why not a 0 and a 1 on there? Okay. So ultimately, to undo the function, you just switch the x's and the y's. So when it comes to the notation for for inverses, you have your f, and then you have this little -1. So it kind of looks like it's up in the exponent, but it's not an exponent because you're talking about the function, right? F, you're not talking about like the variable. And then so to do the inverse, I'm just going to switch everything. So instead of 4, -3, guess what I'm going to have? Yep, -3, 4. And instead of the point 2, 0, I'm just going to switch those, so I get the point 0, 2. Then -3, 5. What, 2, -3? And then 1, 0. And I'm just going to write this on here. Right? So that f of that little -1 of x, okay, that's the inverse of f. It's not an exponent. Okay. Underline that a couple times for you. So it's not too shabby when it comes to if they give you a whole bunch of points and they want you to find the inverse, right? We're just switching those around. And then you can always look to sit there and see if it's a function or not, right? If it's a function for every x, there should only be one y. And if we look at our x's, do any of our x's repeat? Nope. So we know that f of x is a function. And sometimes the inverse is, and sometimes it's not. And on this one, we got a -3 and a -3. So that one's, so the inverse technically isn't a function. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So sometimes they'll ask you if they're functions or not. All right. So what if they don't give us coordinate points? What if they actually give us the equation for a function or for an inverse? So they're going to ask you the question, are they inverses? So if we start with, let's say f of x equals 3x plus 2. We know if we graph that, we're going to get a, starts with an L. Is that a line? So the line goes through where y equals 2 and it's got a slope of 3. Right. So they want to know if f of x equals 3x plus 2, and they're going to give you another function and they're going to say g of x And they're going to say, I don't know, let's say x minus 2 over 3. And they want to know if these two are the inverses of each other. So we can write f of x, we could write that as y equals 3x plus 2. And when we had the coordinate points, when we wanted to find the inverse, what did we do with the x's and the y's? We just switched them, right? So when they give it to you as an equation, you're going to do the same thing. Wherever there's an x, you're going to put in a y, and whenever there's a y, you're going to put in a x. So this would then be x equals 3y plus 2. And then we like everything in that y equals form, so then you're just going to do some algebra to get y all by itself. So if I want to solve this one for y, I'm going to subtract 2. So x minus 2 equals 3y. Divide by 3. So y equals x minus 2 over 3. And then we're going to do the same thing with the second one. So this is going to give me what? Y equals x minus 2 over 3. To find the inverse, we're going to switch the x and the y. So we're going to undo it. So x equals y minus 2 over 3. We like it in the y equals format, so we can make a comparison. So to get rid of my 3, multiply both sides by 3. Okay. So now I got 3x equals y minus 2. Add 2 to both sides. 3x plus 2 equals y. So to see if they're inverses of each other, I started with this guy on my f of x. And when I found the inverse of g of x, I got the same thing, right? So f of x is a inverse. And then we're going to do the same thing on these ones. We're going to compare this one to what we had originally. And does that match up? So since they match up, do you think they're inverses? Yes. So we're just kind of doing some little basic algebra back and forth on solving our little equations, right? All right. So they might ask you, are they inverses? And the other question they might want you to do is they might want you to just find the inverse. Okay. So same exact concept. Right? Let's say they gave us f of x equals 7x minus 5. Right? First thing we're going to do is replace x and y. Okay. So we're going to get y equals 7x minus 5. So we're going to get x equals 7y minus 5. Solve it for y. Add 5, divide by 7. Can you do that in one step? So x plus 5, and then we divide it by 7 equals our y. Okay. So when they want you guys to find the inverse, they really want you to write it in that inverse notation. So we found the inverse. So to write the inverse, that would be f of negative 1 of x. Right? That's how we write inverse. Equals x plus 5 over 7. And we just got to make sure we put that little f of negative 1 on there, that inverse notation, so you know it's not the original function. If you want to make sure that you guys did the math right, you can always check these. When it comes to checking inverses, checking, that's a check. Thought I'd be cute, looks like a V. Checking inverses. If you take your original function and you put in the inverse for the x, it should equal x. And if it doesn't equal x, then you did a boo-boo somewhere. Right? So this is telling us to start with the original, and we're putting in whatever we got for the inverse in for x. So our original was 7x minus 5. Okay. But then for the x, we want to put the inverse in for x. So you'd have 7 times x plus 5 over 7 minus 5. Now we're just going to do some math to simplify. My 7s are going to cancel. Plus 5 minus 5 is going to go away. And what am I left with? X. So then I know I did it right.